Hello, welcome to Eden's Fun Crochet. I'm Eden, and this is the channel where we talk all about crochet and crochet related items, and I'm so excited for this video today. As you could tell from the title of this video that we are going to be talking about products, cheap products for crocheting. I've been crocheting for 10 years? Wait, hold on, let me do the math. I've been crocheting for 14 years. And I found that some of my, I have dipped my toes in the more expensive things. I was dyeing yarn for a bit, hand-dyed yarn compared to, acrylic yarn that you buy at the store. Very expensive, like 3 or 4 times the price. But I have found that some of my favorite things to work with are cheap, or free, or whatever. I haven't used a lot of fancy equipment, so this is just going off of my 15 years of experience, what I have worked with. I have never used the Clover Moore hooks. I don't feel comfortable spending that much money on a hook. I don't think that it could be that much better than what I'm currently using. I'm sure it is better, but not enough for the price that it costs. So I will share with you my favorite tools for my personal journey and my favorite tools. So I will start with hooks. I have 2 main kind of hooks that I use. So I have a lot of these that I don't really use anymore, because these are the hooks that everyone starts with. These are what comes in kits or you buy at the store. These are the ones that come in the individual packets. I will say that I am a fan of the pointed, which is less common than the round tips. All of these are round. I have one pointed. I do like these, but they're less common, and I don't hunt for them, but if I have the choice, then I pick the pointed ones. What I mean is the top is pointier, but also the hook is straight instead of rounded. Like this one, the top is rounded, and then also it's more of a hook shape than straight cutout. I don't love these. I use them when I need a specific size and I can't find my nicer ones, but usually I'll end up switching halfway through a project because they just hurt my hands more. I found that because they're metal and they just slip more, that my tension is tighter, I hold it more and then my hand hurts faster, so not a huge fan of these. The ones that I do use are these Walmart hooks. It's the Boye brand, B-O, oh, you can't even see that. It's engraved on. It's B-O-Y-E, Boye. Sometimes I say Boye because it feels fancy and I like it to be fancy. So these hooks, I find the handles are really squishy. They do slide off after using them for a bit. They are not very sturdy, and so they move a lot, which can be an issue. If that's a big deal breaker for you, then I wouldn't buy these, or take them out, put a little bit of glue in there or something, and then put them back in. So they do slide out really easily. But I like how squishy the handle is, how much give it gives, and I have found that I don't hold on to it as tight because it also that my grip is really loose right here, and it's not moving that much, right? But with this kind of hook, it's moving a lot with the same tension I have on this hook. And I like these so much better. I like how it gradually gets bigger, because then there's also that less of a ability to slide in my hand. So these are actually my favorite. And because they're just the Walmart fancy version, they are not that expensive. They're the Walmart Clover brand, basically. I really like these. I've never used a Clover Moore, so I don't actually know in comparison how much better this is or worse or whatever, but I have found that these work really well for me, and my problems with these hooks go away when I use this kind of hook. The next one that I have is Knit Picks, I think is what this is. I actually don't know. I bought it at a booth at a crochet at like a yarn festival. But this is the hooks. I bought it for $25 for their 15 hooks. Ooh, in here for $25. So I thought that was a really good price. And they have all sorts of sizes. Don't mind the state of this box. I have 2 toddlers. Life happens. I keep it because of this. It tells me which colors are which sizes, which are really nice and handy, especially when I can't find a hook. It makes it so much easier to find it because I can be like, hey husband, help me find a small yellow hook. And then he goes and finds my small yellow hook. So I do like these. I like these better for a few reasons. One, it doesn't really change size here. It does a little bit, but not a lot. Like this one is more big, and so it just fits my hand in the way that I hold it better. And then this one, I feel like has a little bit more of that give, that slidingness, so I have to hold it just a little bit tighter than I do this one. But also, it's not squishy. Like this one is squishy. This one has no squish. Like it's not soft. And so then like it's just cushioned less in my hand and it hurts my like joints just a little bit more. Like where it sits in my hand, it just hurts a little bit. Not a lot, not nearly as much as these. But I found that I do like these the best. I have more size variety in this kind, so I use them probably like more often just because I use lots of variety of hook sizes. But I have like 4 of this hook because 5 is the size that I use the most. And I like this hook. So I use this hook a lot. I have not had much issue with these handles coming off. I have had issues with my 6.5, my like pinkishy purple one, which I've been using a lot lately, has started to slide off. It has come completely off. And that is the only one that I have had slide off. None of the rest of these have any issue with sliding. With this kind of hooks, almost all of them slide. Maybe they don't come off completely, but they do like turn and come off, and so like that is probably the biggest issue with these. But other than that, these are my favorite. These are my favorite. Okay, while we're in my little notions container thing, I have a toy in here, a little baby shark. Anyway. These, I hate these. If you are getting into crocheting and amigurumi and stuff, I can see why this would be, like, you can get a lot of these for pretty cheap. But the fact that this eye, like the eye of the needle, is so big and it's not, like, squishable, really bugs me. Because when I'm using, like, smaller stitches or things like that, it's hard to pull through. It just gets stuck a lot. And so I actually use metal ones. I don't have any to show you right now, but I have metal ones. They're basically the same thing. They're not pointy at all, so they're crochet needles. They're thick, they're big, they're metal, so that they don't So you can get a small pack at Walmart for, I think it's like only $1 more than these. It's really not that much more expensive, and in my opinion, way better, and they last longer, and as long as you don't lose them, then you only need to buy like 1 pack. Okay, moving on to notions. Over the years, I have gotten lots and lots of different kinds of like stitch markers and notions. I've had like the circles that you can use for knitting, but also crochet, where like they're big enough to go on your needle, but they also like twist so that they can go on your crochet. hate those because I don't really knit. I bet if I knit, I'd love them because they're basically just knit circles for crochet, for stitch markers, which is probably great, but I didn't like them for crocheting. I don't like the closper clasps because I feel like the clasp is just too small. Maybe if I had like a really big one, but then it'd be big and awkward. I don't like safety pins, not safety pins. I don't like paper clips because that same problem, they can come off. I've used all sorts of things. Have had some that I like pretty decent, but my cheapest and most favorite, not because it is cheapest, but that is a really big plus, but my favorite one to use that is really easy to come by and my all-time favorite is safety pins. I love safety pins because first of all, they come in a variety of sizes. So even the small ones are not small. Like this is like 4 times the size of a lobster clasp. And they are like half the size of these big ones. And then you can get even bigger than these. And if you want to go crazy, I'm sure you can get even bigger than that. But I have found 3 main sizes, these 2 specifically. And having the different sizes can be helpful because instead of using like different colored stitch markers or whatever, you could just use safety pins. And I know there are like plastic safety pin stitch markers that you can buy, but they're all more expensive than just going to the craft section or office supply section of your store and just buying a pack of these for not too expensive. You can buy a variety pack, you could buy one size pack, it doesn't matter. But I have found that these are what I use. I use them for like stitch markers. So like for example, if I have like a really big project that needs increases, then I'll put them where my increases are and use them for that. I use them for putting on like an open, so I have small children and small children sometimes get their hands on things. So with your open spot, instead when this pulls, it pulls out stitches. If you put a safety pin in it, then no stitches can be undone. And it's actually really nice that you don't have to worry about that. So I try to keep all my projects with a safety pin in them just in case. Because I have had that issue actually sometimes when I see a kid pulling on yarn and I'm like, wait, that's attached to something. And I'm so grateful that sometimes I forget. But most of the time it's not a problem because I put safety pins in them and then when they pull on it, nothing actually happens because there's a safety pin in it. You can do that with like other stitch markers and notions and things like that, like progress keepers. I have found that these work for all of those things. You don't have to have like a bunch of different things. And I understand that they're not pretty. They don't have like stars and sparkles and like they're not decorative at all. And so if you're really into that, I'm sure you can find some. You can even make like your own stitch markers. I've done that, but I don't use them. I only really use these. These are the ones that I use for basically everything. And they are probably your cheapest option. You can buy plastic safety pins that are colorful, but they're more expensive. They're not as cheap as these. These are your cheapest option. And if you lose one, you're not going to be all like, oh, I lost my favorite one. But I also don't feel guilty buying more because I know I'll use them and I'll know that like I'll find them all around my house. And so I don't feel like, I know that they're probably more dangerous than normal stitch markers, but by the time a kid is big enough to open this by themselves because of how much like pressure and fine motor skills it takes, they're old enough to understand that it's pokey and it's going to hurt them if they're not careful. So I found that these are my favorite and the cheapest option, which turns out a lot of my favorite things are the cheapest option. Okay. So as far as like yarn accessories go, I have a yarn ball winder and a swifter. I'm not going to talk a lot about swifters today. I do just have the cheap Walmart option. You don't need it. It is not necessary unless you're doing a lot with hanks, like hand-dyed yarn. I only bought one because I started dyeing yarn. I never had one before that, and I didn't really feel like I needed it. This, on the other hand, ball winder, you will probably need. At some point in your craft journey, you will be like, why am I winding this ball in my hand? And sometimes you still will. But having a ball winder or cake maker or whatever you want to call it is probably going to happen at some point in your crochet or knit journey. I have the cheap Walmart one. I think I might have bought it on Amazon. But it's just a cheap option. Didn't cost me that much. And it's the only one I've ever used. I do have the problem with like how big it is. I feel like once it fills up, it just like falls off the bottom or on the top, and so it just kind of like collapses in on itself, and you have to go and like pull it off of the whole thing instead of just sliding it off. So I would recommend maybe getting a bigger size or one that works better for that. But this one works for my needs, and sometimes I'll have to, like if I use a full skein of yarn, I'll have to split it into 2 cakes. But this is a cheap option. It works. I will probably invest in a better one at some point, but the cheap option, like if you don't want to spend money, this is probably your best bet as far as like ball winders and cakers go. My last thing that I want to talk about is honestly my favorite one. I did not start using it until it was just a few months ago. So I am not a monogamist when it comes to crocheting. Like, I have a bajillion projects all the time. I average around 20. Like, 20 is about where I, like, comfortably sit. I know that sounds like a lot, but some of them are bigger projects or projects that, like, go on over the year. I have blankets. I have a blanket that, like, I'm making with people. Like, I ask people to, like, make a square, and then I'll take a picture of them with it so I remember who made it, and then I'm attaching it to a bigger project. So I'm having a blanket made of squares that other people make and myself. And so I count that as one of my crochet whips, but that's not going to be something that gets done anytime soon. So I have lots of projects that are bigger like that, and then I have lots of small projects that probably could be finished. But so my favorite way to keep organized, I used to just write everything in the back of my like crochet notebook, which by the way, I also recommend. I just have like a cheap book from like any journal that you want. It could be cheap, it could be expensive, whatever you want. I like ones that aren't like the full size because they fit better in bags. But I just have like things like notes, little like ideas for projects, measurements, numbers, anything that I'm like, oh, I should write this down, I don't want to forget it kind of things. Like I started writing a pattern here, like I've been showing in one of my other videos, like my timeline for getting projects done. Like this is my second one. I don't go through them very fast, but I do love having these, like having a journal to keep all my stuff in physically. I do keep a lot of stuff in my phone in like my notes app. I have like a folder dedicated to my crochet things because sometimes I don't always have this with me. But I do recommend getting one of these, and you don't have to get an expensive one. Like this is a really cutesy one, but you can buy just a cheap normal one in any size you want that fits your needs. But this is one of my favorite ones. Anyway, I was in the middle of saying something. Oh yeah, I used to keep a list in my crochet book in the back of all of the projects, and then as I like made more, I would like go backwards in my book. That way I wasn't like putting it in the middle and then having to find it every time. With that said, I did not keep up with it at all. Like I'd go to update it and I'd be like, oh, finish that. Oh, what projects have I started that I need to add to it? And I was just not good at keeping up with it. I tried doing that like 2 or 3 separate times and it just didn't work for me. And so then I tried keeping it up on Ravelry because I know that you can keep your projects and like whips and things in Ravelry. And that kind of worked. And it was closer to what I wanted, but it wasn't quite what I personally wanted in like a progress keeping place. Like I wanted to have all my things in one spot so that I knew what I had, what I was working on. And so if I got like super motivated to work on things, I could pull out my list and be like, I want to work on that I haven't touched in a while, that I want to work on. or if I finish a project and I'm like, oh, but I should probably finish something before I start something, or whatever, you know, like I wanted to have a place where all my things were. So I went searching on the Google Play Store, and I found this app called Pocket Crochet. It's that one right there. It's called Pocket Crochet. And it basically is just, okay, I'll show you. So these are my whips right here. Click on that folder and it lists all of my whips. And it has a picture so that I'm like, wait, what was that? Or if I have similar things. So for example, this one is my friend's granny square blanket, right? So I click on that and it has like notes that you can write. I wrote each square has been made by a different person. So that's my notes. And then it has like all of this information that you can put in. So it has a picture, but you can also upload other pictures to it. So it has images, so you can put like the steps or like pictures of the different things. I should probably put the pictures of the different people in that one, of the people holding the squares. And then you can categorize it with like emojis so that you can like search in your projects like by category. And then I don't really use that one as much because I have them organized by like whips and FOs and things like that. And then when you started it, when you ended it, you can even like attach the website where you got the pattern from. You can add like a hook size, and they have like pre-hook sizes. I have found once they get up to 4.5 is when they stop doing it by quarters. And so like I have a 4.75 hook or like a 5.25 hook. They don't have those on there, so I end up just writing it in the notes, which isn't a big deal to me. You can also like have a row counter, and if you go back to like this page, you can like use the row counter. I don't really use that much unless I'm working on something that's more difficult, or like the row count matters more. You can also add in a pattern. I don't follow patterns that much, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So I have this mosaic rose thing that I started on. It's actually a pillow pattern, but I made it into a purse. Okay, so in my notes where the notes usually pop up, it has a spot in the like project where you can add a pattern. And then like that is where it shows up, is here. And then I can just like swipe through the pattern in the app so that I don't have to go searching for it every time. And it shows up here. Like you just upload the file PDF and then it's just in your project. And then when you go to like this page before you get into the details, it has the entire pattern in like PDF form that you can use. And that is, I think, really amazing. It helped a lot when I was working on that project because I didn't have to go and find the PDF every time. And when I went to update the file on here, I already had it open because I was working on the pattern, like working from the pattern. And then once I finish a project, you can like click and like hold it, and it pops up this little thing where it just says manage project, add to folder. So you click on add to folder, and then I move it from my whips to my FOs. And then it will be in my FOs folder instead of my whips folder, and then the number will change. So then I'll have less whips and more FOs. Something that I have recently found out is that you can have folders inside of each other. So I have started selling things like on Etsy, and so in my whips folder I have a shop whip folder where this is everything that I'm working on for the shop, which is separate from my actual whips, and it doesn't actually change this number. That whole folder counts as one whip, which is really cool. And then I also have the same thing in my FOs folder where it's shop FOs, which is really cool. And so you can like double up or triple up on your folders, and you can make as many as you want. So that app is called Pocket Crochet, and I know it's really similar to the way Ravelry works, but I personally like it better. But all of these things are things that are cheap or free, like the app is free. You can use a notebook you already have, so kind of free depending on how you think of it. But all of these things are really cheap. The things that I have used my own money on, I have not like been paid or given any of these things by the companies or anything like that. Like if they reach out to me, I would happily support them because these are things that like I enjoy using, and so I would anyway. So these are things that I think that are really cheap and easy to use, and things that I would recommend using if you are like, well, I'm a beginner and I don't really know what I want to use, and all these things that people recommend are expensive. These are all very cheap things that you can do. As far as compared to other aspects of crochet, these are your cheapest options, and things that I personally choose to use. Even if I have the more expensive option, these are the things I choose to use. The only one that I would probably upgrade from is the ball winder. I'll probably get a better one at some point, but it works for my needs currently, and it's cheap. Well, cheap for what it is anyway. So yeah, thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time, hopefully.